both topics come in pretty much the same way. They come in as a support ticket. And the support ticket usually says, we can't check files into the vault, or we can't check files out of the vault. You're working in inventory, you try to check something in and it just errors out. It says it's the connection was forcibly closed by the host, right? You don't know what that means. You call in, we have to look on the server, and that's when we realize, your D drive is full. Maybe you had a 800 gigabyte drive. All of a sudden your file store is 800 gigabytes, and Vault no longer has the space to create new versions of it, right? If you have Vault in the cloud with us, we always make sure that the drives are always a good size to give you guys growth. We always monitor it to make sure that we can expand it whenever you need to. But if you have an on-premise server, your drives are physical, like the one you're seeing on your screen. You can expand those. Maybe you have one laying around. Maybe it's 1.5 terabytes at that point. You can replace it. You still have to copy over your data, and that's downtime. So I'm gonna go into Japanese proverbs, right? It's like for want of a nail, we lost a horseshoe. For loss of a horseshoe, you lost a horse. For loss of a horse, you lost a message. For loss of a message, you lost the war. It all kind of cascades where, because of this one little hard drive, now you're waiting days, to either find a new one, go buy one. You have this unexpected expense, unexpected downtime, and it's all, something that could have been prevented, either with maintenances, making sure that you're monitoring those drives. But it all kind of just cascades from there.
And it's not just a file store drive either, right? So it's also your C drive, your operating system drive. If that starts to run down, you're going to start getting some weird errors. Remember getting a service call or a service ticket, and they were just getting some really weird errors, and they'd reboot their server, and then everything would work. But it only worked for about a day or two, and then they start getting weird errors again. And when we investigated it, found the C drive was down to like 5 gigs. And what was happening was that temp drive or that temp folder kept filling up. And then, the server wouldn't work right. So once they rebooted, it would clear out that server, or it would clear out that temp folder, and the server would work. So yeah, and then to the backup drives, if you separate your operating system file store on your backup drives, you want to monitor all of those, make sure you got plenty of space so that you don't have intermittent backups. Seen that quite a few times too. You got to remember that as you're increasing the size of the files in your vault, that file store drive, it starts to fill up, and subsequently your backups are going to get bigger every time. So make sure you monitor those drive spaces.
Yeah, and kind of just like a side note there, a lot of the times when we run into this issue, a quick fix that people think about is, I'll just purge a bunch of these files and get me some space, right? Unfortunately, purging doesn't really give us as much space as we think it will. Vault has all of these versions interconnected a lot of the times. So if it's used by one, an older version is connected to a newer version, then it won't really purge them out, and you don't really gain as much space. So if you're kind of banking on purging down the line to give yourself more space, I would think of a different way to expand that moving forward. On the topic of purging, this also comes in, right? That support ticket we were talking about, it kind of presents itself the same way. You try to check out in this case, or even check in, both will kind of cause issues on SQL or SQL on the server side still. So you kind of go in, if you're new to the Vault environment, you can get away with using SQL Express. The thing is, SQL Express does have a size limit, a capacity limit on it. Once you reach 10 gigabytes, it kind of locks down. it gives you like very minimal space for like wiggle room. So if it's at like 10 or 10.01, it's like, okay, we're still okay. But as soon as it goes past that little threshold, it locks up, right? So you can't really check files in or out. Have you seen that on your end, Donnie?
Um, I haven't run into that one yet, but I do know what the ramifications are. We talk about it all the time as a team, making sure that our customers are on the right SQL edition to make sure that they're not, running into these problems. And that's one of the things we do monitor with our vault maintenance program.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those things again where it's an unforeseen expense. And this one, with a hard drive, yeah, you can go to Best Buy and go grab a new drive, physical drive, expand it. Uh, SQL Server is a little bit more expensive, and depending on your purchasing process, that may take days. So now you have engineers that are down for 3 days while you're waiting for this purchase order to be approved. Then you have to if you have a DBA or database administrator, they're able to upgrade that for you. But otherwise, you reach out to us and we have to do it for you, right? We upgrade your SQL instance, making sure that the paid version doesn't have a limit anymore. So now you just it again cascades from a small thing that could have been limited to a possibly 3 to 5 days that we've seen of downtime for a customer because it takes that long for them to get one. But yeah, it's definitely something we've seen. Unfortunately, sometimes we're able to fix it really quickly if on our larger customers they do have licenses sometimes provisioned, but if not, then we run into these issues.
Everyone is an admin, and we touched on this one earlier, but it never hurts to talk about it again. When everyone's an admin, everyone has access to all the settings in Vault. And so unexpected changes start to occur as people start to play. I mean, I'm one of those people that likes to dive into a piece of software and what can I do? Well, what does this button do? What does that do? And I know you've all run into those people. And if we're not careful, we start to break things, start to mess things up, and then change too many things, you forget what you changed. So yeah, it's important that we assign specific roles to our users and groups to maintain a nice, clean Vault environment. To keep engineering and manufacturing, rolling. We don't want to try to avoid stopping people from being able to access the files or giving them too much access, depending on their role within the company. So
Yeah,
there really should only be like one or two admins.
yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things. Yeah, we touched on it in one of the previous topics, but it's one of the things you'd be surprised how often it happens when we go in. And of course, sometimes it doesn't happen on purpose, right? So like it doesn't happen all at once. Maybe you do have one admin, and then somebody requests saying, "Hey, like I want to start making my own um, test workflows and test these properties kind of things. Can I be admin?" And a couple months later, somebody else does it. We never remove it from the original person. By the end of it, you have 7 admins all making different changes, and nobody knows who made what, and there's really no way to kind of track those changes specifically made to workflows. On our end, it works out. Like if I'm ever demoing something and I need to bypass one of the workflows, I make the change on the fly. Not really something you want to happen in a production environment.
Yeah, and this is also, you touched on workflows processes changing. That's where you really want to rely on your documentation and make sure you document those changes that were made. so that you know what was changed and what it was changed from. So if you run into a problem, you can always revert back.
Yeah, exactly. And then this one. Thank you. You had we both kind of dealt with this. Luckily, the customer we were